Do better.
Be better.
Welcome back to Take Flight Podcast. We're your hosts, Mozo and Shares, inbound implementers and social media specialists at Spitfire Inbound.
We've got such an exciting episode ahead of us today. We're talking to the jet-setting head of onboarding, Shiran Sugerman, who zipped off to Singapore to do some training and participate in a conference with one of our clients. Welcome, Shiran.
Hi, guys. Thanks.
So, interesting fact, you're not a huge fan of traveling. Why were you the one that was whisked off overseas?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest, traveler. I'm quite happy to stay at home, but this was a really big, conference for us and something that we as a team would really, benefit from, building that relationship with the clients and, being able to actually go out and, So with the current state of things where everything is online, it's really nice to be able to get that face-to-face time with the client. And this particular client being in Asia, it was nice to be, get on the plane and go there. The reason it was me specifically is just because this was really about that expertise around HubSpot and being able to work with a client that really wanted to know how best to use HubSpot to its fullest. And, that consulting arm of making sure that the team feels comfortable with the system, that they have some best practices that they can go away with. And also because it was my clients. I mean, I've been working on this client locally for 5 years, and we expanded internationally around 3 years ago. So I know the client backwards and inside out. So it's easier for me to be the person to go out there and have that conversation with them because I know who they are, I know what they do, and I can then tell them how best HubSpot is going to help them grow where they need to grow.
Were these kind of conferences or international trips a thing pre-COVID, or is that the relationship kind of that you've been building?
So, I mean, definitely in some aspects, there was always a level of seeing clients in person. I think that in terms of the global aspect of it, pre-COVID, we definitely had the global clients, but we didn't have it to the extent where we would maybe go overseas, maybe to a different city in South Africa. So I think that, the post-COVID environment has definitely opened up people's eyes to the fact that, one, you can be, a consultancy anywhere in the world and service clients, but that there is still that value in being there face to face, and that this is something that does help. And I mean, it was the clients who came to us going, we're doing a conference. We want to, help our teams be better at marketing and at, all the elements that go into, being a great team. And they came to us and said, okay, we want you to be a part of this, which was really great because it showed that, we had been adding value to the clients and that they were willing to have us come all the way across the world just to give them a little bit more value face to face.
So, Shiran, when the client actually came to you and asked you to come and present in Asia, was this something, were you nervous or was it something that got you excited?
So the presenting part of it, I'm not nervous about. It's something that I enjoy thoroughly. And I actually love being in front of the clients, and I love being there in person. It was the fact that I would have to get on a plane for 10 hours and travel to a completely different country that made me nervous. And also I have a family, I have 2 little children, knowing that I would be away for that time. It did add a little bit of tension, but we all adjust, and the value of going to Singapore, seeing the clients in person, being able to have those conversations, it was all worth it, even though I didn't enjoy the flights.
What was your biggest takeaway from the experience? Was it the place? Was it the people? Definitely not the trip.
So, I mean, obviously, biggest takeaway being the value of doing these sorts of things in person. When you're online, you don't, especially with bigger teams, so we obviously have been working with this team for a while, and there are different people there, but and it's also a cultural thing. Some people are more quiet than others. The Asian community as a whole and the culture there are very quiet and reserved. So when you're on camera or you're on an online call, they're less likely to put up their hand. Whereas I found that being there in person, and me being the person that I am, I could push them a little to actually, raise their hand, or they could come to me during the lunch break or, afterwards, if they didn't feel comfortable talking in that setting, and still ask me the questions and still get the value out of the session without feeling, pressurized to do it in front of everyone. So, I mean, there is really so much value in doing, these kinds of consultancies on a face-to-face level when it comes to especially large teams like this one.
So, Shiran, what kind of feedback did you get from the client after the actual event?
No, I mean, the feedback was really positive. They too felt like me being there in person was really valuable. The feedback from the team was that they enjoyed the session. They found it helpful. I think, just in terms of doing a larger team, I mean, there are always going to be some people who feel a little uncomfortable or maybe feel like they didn't get as much time. I think the time was the biggest challenge. It was a conference that I was not the only speaker at. So there was a time constraint on that. And sometimes something like HubSpot, I mean, there's so much to it that it often feels like there's never enough time. But I think all in all, the client really enjoyed it. And they really did feel like it was a valuable experience for them. And also the relationship building, Spitfire is a company that prides itself on being a partner. We don't just work, we're not suppliers, we're partners. And that partnership comes from the relationships that we build with the people, not just with the brand, but with the people as well. And being there in person, I mean, going for dinner with the team and just talking non-business stuff is a really valuable part of being able to build that relationship and making customers feel like we really do care, which we do, about them and their needs.
I'm going to be that person now that you spoke about dinners. Singapore highlights. So she was sending messages in the WhatsApp group. Your Instagram looks amazing. Regardless of that, when it came to the travel, what was something that stood out to you? What did you see?
One of my absolute favorite things was I was very fortunate to have some time to actually go do some touristy things. And I went to the Art Science Museum in Singapore, which was one of the greatest. It was absolutely a wonderful experience. It was so beautiful. I'm someone that loves all things art and all things science. So it was a great combination for me. And to be honest, I wish I could have looked at all the exhibitions there, but it was a really just an amazing thing to go out and see. I think walking around the city and just seeing how people are, seeing the different culture. It's a beautiful city. It's really clean and it's really it feels so nice. It was incredibly hot, I must admit. The heat was a little overwhelming. But yeah, I think just being in Singapore, being able to see what they have to offer and all of that was a really, really great experience. And then also just we did have lunch and dinners and all of that with the team at certain restaurants, and it was really nice to just kind of see the difference in how they do things in some of the places there. So it was lots of fun.
So before we ask the closing off question, I have to ask, most interesting dish?
So I had stingray.
Ooh.
So I am not an adventurous eater. My travel and adventure is like boring as anything. So I'm not an adventurous eater. I'm not an adventurous person in general. But the dishes in Singapore were very different, and I do tend to eat more pescatarian or vegetarian kind of stuff. So they kind of ordered some stingray, and I gave it a try, and it was actually really cool. So it's an interesting nice thing to have.
Cool. Our last question, or like just a close off question, is that the relationship with this client seems to be more of a partnership. What makes this a good relationship?
So I think it's the history of, so this particular team is the Asian team, but we started with the brand and with the clients, 5-6 years ago here in South Africa. And Spitfire as a whole, and our team as a whole, I mean, we really immerse ourselves in everything. So for me, it's like I said, I know the brand inside and out. I know their products. I know their industry. So being able to now expand into the other regions, it's for them. They get someone who has that background, understands their needs, understands what their business requirements are. And I think, that's what a partnership is. A partnership is that, you almost become part of the business. I mean, we joke about it all the time that, we're part of the furniture. We're an extra, arm of the business, as it were. So that's ultimately what that's all about, becoming a partner, being that consulting arm of their business. We always have to become an extension of the business. And, that builds trust within the teams, that they know that they're working with someone who actually does take the time to understand their business and isn't just looking at the high level. I mean, HubSpot is the tool that we use, which is a great tool and has a lot of great features, but ultimately it's not just about the tool. It's about, business growth. That's what we ultimately do. We help businesses grow.
Shiran, putting the real in real relationship. I hate myself, but thank you so much for joining us today. That was really insightful. You taking us in your luggage next time?
I don't know if Mutzel will fit, but Shaz, I'm sure I could squeeze you in.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great, guys. Thanks a lot.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our latest episode. Be sure to check out the blog post connected to this episode at spitfireinbound.com and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
We'd love for you to like, follow, and subscribe to our podcast, and for you to leave us a review if you like this episode. Remember to tag us on social media on the handle at spitfireinbound.com. Please leave us a voice note on Anchor or a comment below, and we'll send a shout out in our next episode. Until then,
bye.